everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I'm going to show you how to create this awesome circle design using one of the extra dies that comes in one of the Horizon die sets. So if you don't have the Horizon die sets, there's a couple of them that come with these little extra dies that don't actually go with the main circular design you usually create. So we actually call these extra dies quarter round dies. So right now I'm going to show you the two sets that you can find these in. So you can find two of the quarter round dies in the Horizon die set. So the Horizon die set, this was our very first set. It comes with the 3x4 and the 3x3 Horizon dies. And if you have the set, you'll notice it has these two little ones. I have a red oval around them. It comes with a 2x2 quarter round and two 1x1 quarter rounds. And I'm not going to be using these today, but you can do the same kind of design that I am doing today, but it will look smaller, obviously, if you use one of these dies. So the 2x2 round basically can make a 4x4 circle shape on your layout, and the two little 1x1s can make a very small 2x2 circle on your layouts. You can also find an extra die in the 4x5 Horizon set. So you use the 4x5 with the previous die set to create that larger circle shape on your layout. But the 4x5 set comes with the 3x3 quarter round die, the one that I have highlighted here. And this is the one I'm going to make the layout with today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. All right, this is the 3x3 quarter round die, and I'm going to first create it'll basically be the outer frame of the circle with this pattern paper. So the pattern paper has this gingham, I think it's called gingham, right? Anyway, I want to make sure it looks straight, so I'm using washi tape to make sure that die is placed on the paper so that those lines will be straight and not crooked after I cut it. And I'm going to use the same paper for the entire outer edges of the circle. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this first piece. Right here I have the Sizzix Big Shot die machine. And as usual, I have the die in at an angle because we find that helps distribute the pressure of the machine better so you get a better cut. So just like any other die, you roll it through the machine, and now I have a perfectly cut corner for my circle, and I'm going to continue to make the other three cuts. So I'll be back in a moment. All right, now I have all four of my pieces cut, and I'm carefully gluing down along each corner. And you want to make sure you get all of those corners really good because you want to make sure it's really tacked onto that grid paper so it doesn't fold up or stick up. So the last corner on the bottom right, I did not stick down because it's not along the grid lines. So for that one, I will need to cut the quarter circle or quarter round, whatever you want to call it. And for my photo, I actually printed two 5x7 photos just to make it easier for me. And it's two different shots. It's basically a vertical panorama. So two shots taken at the top of the fall and another shot taken more at the bottom of the fall. And these two photos overlap the same scene a little bit. So I'm going to try to make sure I get an accurate view when I place it on my layout. So I'm just lining it up where it kind of overlaps between the two photos. And I definitely want to make sure the photo on the top is going to have enough room for my die as well. All right, I have to make sure I straighten this out again. I'm just going to place some washi tape here so they don't become, scrambled again, and I don't have to realign it again. So washi tape is super handy for all these projects. All right, so you can see there's a little bit of an overlap in the back, so I don't want to cut on that overlap. So I am going to make sure that this top portion photo will fit the die, which it does. So again, I'm not cutting into where it overlaps. I'm just cutting on this top portion of the photo that the bottom photo does not cover at all. And I'm going to carefully place the quarter round die on the part I would like to show on my layout. And I'm going to put washi tape over there as well to make sure my die does not shift at all, especially when it goes to the machine, because I'm going to be referring to that spot later to do the other half of that same photograph. All right, so I'm being really, really careful. And honestly, when you take panoramic photos, it's better to not really have any overlap. But in this case, it was. So it's going to be a little bit trickier for me. But I think you guys are up for the challenge if you have the same scenario. All right, now I'm going to carefully cut it through the die machine. So I have my first quarter of the circle, as you can see here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to carefully take it off because I want the die to line up as accurately as possible on the other half of the photo. So the photos are pretty good about just sticking together, so I didn't even pull it out. I'm going to use that half to help me figure out where to line the other side of the cut. So I'm leaving a tiny bit of a gap between the two because I figure there's a gap in the grid paper, you know, where the grid line's going to be anyway. So you don't have to have it literally right up against each other, the two cuts anyway. But I'm just taking my time and being really careful to make sure that my die is going to line up as accurately as possible to my previous cuts. So this part is a little bit slow, but again, I want to make sure I get it right. If it's not 100% perfect, that's okay, because that's sort of the magic of mosaic moments, is because we have the gaps with the grid paper. If it doesn't line up exactly, you know, it kind of magically doesn't show up to, pretty much at all or not too bad. So it's probably going to be off even just a tiny bit. But like I said, with the grid paper, it kind of magically makes it so you don't see it as much if that does happen. All right, now I have my two pieces, and I do have this big sheet of cardstock here just so I don't get any glue right on my layout or on the table. So I am going to go ahead and glue them down. Again, I'm getting the corners really well, and I put a little bit of glue in the center of the die cut as well. All right, so now I'm going to line those up beneath my, basically the corners, I guess you can say. And there should not be a gap between the outer frame piece and the rounded piece. So don't put a gap between them. The center should be squished right up against your frame pieces. So together they basically make 3x3 squares on your grid paper. All right, as you can see, the washi tape was really handy because I just folded over the photo and put it back over. Of course, now I picked it up anyway. But the washi tape could be handy for that. So now I'm just relining it up and making sure it's going to line up correctly. Below my photo, again, there is a bit of that Mosaic Moments magic, and if it's not 100% accurate, it'll still look good. All right, now I'm bringing back the die, and I'm placing it really carefully and as accurately as possible below the first photo. And so I'm just taking my time again and making sure, again, this cut's going to be as accurate as possible. And now that my die is lined up, I'm going to put it through the die machine. So I have it on my plate here. I do have it at a little bit of an angle, though my photo's so big, it's not really at that much of an angle, but I would still say put it in as much of an angle at an angle as possible. All right, now I cut the first piece, which is the easiest, I think, because the second one I'm going to have to line up. But I'm just going to leave the die cut right in the photo. And I'm going to try to get that second piece. So I'm bringing back my layout because I want to make sure this last quarter is lined up not only with the bottom right, but also with the top left photograph. So it's a little bit tricky here, but I think I can manage because basically it's just rocks. But if you need to, you can put the photo, below your previous one to make sure it's going to line up as accurately as possible. I've had a lot of practice with these dies, and again, really for my photo, there's not as much going on. It's mainly just the rocks, so I didn't feel as much of a need to line it up 100% exactly. I figure as long as I line it up with the photo on the right, or the right side of the photograph, it'll probably be fine. All right, now I have that die lined up as accurately as possible. And I'm going to roll that one through the machine as well. So as you can see with these kind of, panoramic bigger shots, you really want to take your time and make sure that scene, whatever you are trying to cut out, is going to look accurate. Even if you printed one big photo, you still want to make sure your die is going to line up accurately when you roll it through the machine, and that nothing looks super crooked, at least when you put it on the grid. All right, now I glued down the the bottom half of the circle here. And earlier I wasn't able to glue down that corner piece because it wouldn't line up on the grid lines correctly. So for this, I guess, quarter, I needed to put the photo portion on first because it lines up on the grid lines, or over the grid lines, correctly, and then I could easily fit in that corner piece. So just something to keep in mind. Of course, you'll probably figure out, that bottom piece you probably can't figure out very easily where it goes over the grid lines. So that's just something to keep in mind for that particular corner. And to finish off my design, I'm putting on the last piece here. One of the most satisfying parts of making a Mosaic Moments layout is finishing it and seeing your final beautiful design. And I think this is a very beautiful design with the 3x3 quarter round die. So this is my finished design and it looks really good. And today I made it look like, one big photo in the middle, but you could also have 4 different photos in the middle, especially if the one big photo is a little more challenging for you. It's a good way to add more photos in your layout because you can add 4 photos in. We have actually reached the end of today's video. I know usually my layouts are completely finished by the end, but I'm actually doing a part 2 video with the grid cut dies, so keep your eye out for that if it's not published already when you're watching this. So I will see you again in that video, but thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I will see you next time.